Hello, everyone. I'm Cho, and I'm 16 years old. Are you afraid of people on the street? Someone will say, dear, if you're afraid of everyone, you will stop going out on the street. And my answer is, watch this video to the end and find out how one trip with a stranger in an elevator ended for me. I've lived in Koreatown all of my life. Do not think that this is some kind of a ghetto. People of all various nationalities also live there. It's just that in our city, all South Koreans, starting with those who came many generations ago, live in the same area. This often leads to problems, but as for me, I absolutely like this state of things. Once, I went into a dark entrance with a white guy, and he started harassing me, and I was little. I've been told to be careful. I started yelling for help. In other places, no one would have helped me at all, but not here. My neighbors heard me and did not let the scoundrel get away with it. I loved all these people even more, but because of this incident, I became terribly nervous and afraid. Now imagine what happened to me when a strange white guy got into the same elevator with me. Oh my God, what terrible eyes he had. And his smile. Damn, this smile was almost like Joker's. He also moved in a strange way. I couldn't figure out what it was, but his movements made me tense for some reason. Then the elevator stopped. The lights went out, the movement stopped, and I was ready to scream. Have you ever felt trapped? I was locked in the most literal sense. And the devil knows with whom. This is embarrassing, huh? The guy asked. Don't be afraid of me. This, of course, was very reassuring. I began furiously to press the call button. A woman answered me and said that the workers would be here in 15 minutes. 15 minutes? He could kill me in that time. Well, I thought, okay, maybe I'll get lucky. I took out my phone to light it up, turned on the flashlight, and he was standing right next to me. I screamed, only then did he recoil. We went silent for a while, and then he said, you smell nice. Was that normal? I sidled to the door so that I could be the first to get out as soon as it was opened. And he was still smiling and staring at where I'd been standing. And then the elevator jerked. My heart just leapt into my throat, and I dropped my phone. I started to search on the floor and hear the voice of my maniac. Have you lost this? I stood up and demanded that he give the phone back. And I held out my hand, and in the second one, I clutched the keys in my pocket, almost ready to hit. He gave me the phone, but it didn't turn on. No more light. I started to breathe as if I was about to give birth. And he was at it again. What, you don't like the dark? He said. I like it. I'm more used to it. And he laughed, damn it. And then I felt a hand on my arm. How did he realize where I was standing? I couldn't see further than my own nose. By breathing? By smell? And then he muttered, don't be afraid. I'm with you. Damn, I'm afraid of you, maniac. Here, he brought his face close to mine and exhaled. Or maybe you and me. And then the door opened. I shoved him away and ran as fast as I could. I only turned around once to see him hanging around on the landing with that weird smile of his, arms outstretched like a zombie as if sniffling. Rough. I told my father right away, and he took it very seriously. Did a strange guy come up to you? Call me immediately if he shows up again, he said. I swore to my dad, but I really might not even have done it. I met this weirdo at the weekend when the whole family went for a walk in the alley. He was just walking around with that creepy smile, and I recognized him right away. Look, there he is. That one, my father asked, and was about to move toward him with clear intentions. And my mother stopped him. Cho, don't you see? He's blind. Dad and I took a closer look at the guy. In fact, the walking stick, which I took to be just a stylish accessory, was guiding his way, and he followed it carefully. Then I understood and was ashamed. I went crazy already, got scared of a blind boy. Well, he spoke strangely, but he didn't do anything wrong to me. Ugh, this was awkward. Have you ever accused a perfectly innocent person of something? After this, you really don't want to meet face to face. The next time I ran into him in the elevator was just 2 days later. I didn't think his smile was creepy anymore. Well, a little bit. We were silent for a moment, and then he said, "I recognized you by your perfume." I blushed and mumbled that I was sorry, that I had run away, that I was afraid of elevators and strangers in elevators. He offered to fix it with a walk. I agreed. During our conversation, I learned a lot about him. His name was James, and he inherited the apartment in our house from his uncle. James' parents died, and he now lived with his aunts, who were technically his guardians. I remembered the people on the 5th floor. Yes, dear Uncle Pon had recently been buried, and there were 3 angry women left behind. His wife, sister, and a mother. Terribly unpleasant ladies. I always say exactly what I think, but James wasn't offended. He said he couldn't stand them either and had just started going out without them, whereas they forbade him anything at all, including looking for a job. James and I met for another walk, and then another, and more. One day, I ran into one of his aunts in the elevator. Word for word, I told her that James was not a child to be so patronized and that she and her relatives should give him some freedom. What did she say? A big, fat, racist profanity. I didn't say anything to this disgusting woman, but I was determined that James should be saved from this terrible family. So I called him in the evening when he was usually at home and barely managed to persuade him to go for a walk without his aunts knowing. He was very nervous and worried that they would be angry, but I didn't listen to him. I took him to the Clover Honey, my favorite place in town. Technically, it was a bar, but there was a free stage, almost always few people, and musical instruments were freely available. I helped James play the marimba for the first time, the maracas, and I knocked on the jango myself. James was so happy. He said that he had wanted to buy a piano, but at first his family had no money, and then, after his uncle died, his aunts wouldn't let him use his inheritance. What? I was terribly surprised by what James said to me. And he went on. Yes, he was the heir to this money, and he was 18 years old, but his aunts were technically guardians of the invalid, and therefore they were responsible for his spending. So he didn't go to bars because he couldn't pay for himself. I did not waste time and turned to a neighbor who worked as a lawyer. We prefer to solve everything through friends, you know. I explained the situation to her, and she asked me to introduce her to James so that she could look at all his documents. They were stored in his aunt's closets, and there was no easy way to get there. So I went to James's house, made a scene, and distracted these crazy noisy women while James grabbed all the documents he could get. I was forbidden to enter the house at all, but this did not bother me at all. I was glad that our little ruse had succeeded. A neighbor told us that if James could prove his independence, then he would not need any guardians at all. James filed a lawsuit, and our neighbors started representing him. And a few weeks later, I was called to court. It turned out that his aunts blamed everything on me, saying that I slept with their boy, where? In the elevator? Made a baby, and now I wanted my bastard to inherit everything by tricking a poor invalid. I went to the gynecologist, and he confirmed that I was a virgin. I wouldn't let those scumbags open their mouths at me. The trial was successful. James was given the right to manage his own money. He has moved to another apartment on the ground floor, so he doesn't have to use the elevator. But we still see each other, walk down the alley, and play the marimba at the Clover Honey. What would you do if you were stuck in an elevator with a creepy stranger? Or maybe you're the creepy stranger that people can get stuck with? Tell us in the comments and subscribe to our channel.